Excellencias,
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I declare open the 10th meeting of the 76th plenary session of the Executive Committee. At the end of this morning's meeting, we heard from Ms. Núñez Flores Frey and Mr. Mbokani, and I will now turn to delegations who wish to take the floor. First, the delegation of Colombia.
Muchísimas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, President. The delegation of Colombia would like to highlight the work of NGOs and express our thanks for the presentation from Ms. Núñez from the delegation of Save the Children. For Colombia, refugee displacement issues are crucial, and the work of NGOs to support and create advocacy is fundamental. We applaud you for your work. We would also like to say that as part of the second Global Forum on Refugees and the Framework for Migration, NGOs urged that we should have leadership to end with the situation for migrants. There is no humane way to detain children. On Monday, the 3rd of October in Berlin, Germany, the organization Coalition, spearheaded by the Colombian Carolina Cortado, is receiving an award by the Friedrich Stiftung organization. This is a moment where we're seeing the respect for migrants and refugees undermined, and therefore today I would like to take this opportunity to thank NGOs for the tremendous work. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other speaker wishing to take the floor? It does not appear to be the case. Have you any additional comments? That does not appear to be the case. I'm very grateful to Ms. Flores Rey and Mr. Mbokani for their presentations. Before I close this agenda item, I'd like to take the opportunity to express my appreciation and admiration for the work undertaken by UNHCR's non-governmental partners, including refugee-led organizations and national and international NGOs. They are instrumental to the realization of a very large part of the office's program in the field. Let me also underline the importance we attach as members of the committee to the participation of the NGO community in our debates, and thank them for the very consistent and thoughtful contributions. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, let us now proceed with item 8 of the agenda. And I would like to invite the chairperson of the UNHCR Staff Council, Ms. Nathalie Meynet, to address the committee.
Is she coming now? Señora Meynet, tiene usted.
Ms. Meynet, you have the floor.
Gracias. Merci. Distinguished Chair, High Commissioner, Deputy High Commissioner, Assistant High Commissioner, and distinguished delegates. Every year, the Global Staff Council brings to this committee the voice of UNHCR staff. Our concerns have evolved with the challenges, but one reality never changes. The ability for UNHCR to fulfill its mandate rests on two inseparable pillars: the resources that member states provide and the people who transform those resources into protection solutions, often in the most difficult and dangerous conditions. Back in 2022, in the shadows of the COVID-19 pandemic and the outbreak of the war in Ukraine, we warned of the urgent need to strengthen the duty of care, to protect national colleagues, and to safeguard institutional memory from the erosion caused by over-reliance on short-term contracts. In 2023, we mourned the colleagues lost in the terrible earthquake in Turkey. We recognized the courage of staff working under constant security-based evacuations and rising insecurity, from Sudan to the Sahel. We also urged recognition of long-serving colleagues and called for stronger protections against harassment, bullying, and retaliation, as well as safeguarding progress on diversity. In 2024, the realignment exercise marked the beginning of major restructuring. It was complex and painful, mentally and physically, with many colleagues going through periods of uncertainty. That was a year of transition that profoundly affected staff. But it would pale in comparison to what 2025 was to bring. This year, against the backdrop of a drastic decrease in financial contributions, the organization has faced a challenge of an entirely different magnitude. In less than 12 months, more than 4,900 colleagues have been separated or have left UNHCR, with further cuts to come. For us, staff, it is the dramatic downsizing of our workforce, with immense organizational and human consequences. We are losing the experience of colleagues, national and international, who have carried the lessons of past crises, those who knew how to navigate the most complex operations. For the thousands being separated, their families, and often their wider communities, the transition has been abrupt and shattering. The recently concluded GSC staff survey underlines this human cost. Colleagues spoke of job insecurity, sudden loss, and the heavy toll on their health. As they say, the stress has become unbearable. I wake up every day with anxiety about the future and go to sleep wondering, will tomorrow be the day I will lose my job? We must not leave staff to face this situation alone. We call on the organization, and by extension on you, the member states, to strengthen measures for work transitions, to extend voluntary separation programs, and to create robust social security safety nets. UN staff, unlike most national employees, have little to no access to national unemployment scheme or medical insurance. So together with the ILO staff unions and others, we are advancing a proposal for the first contributory unemployment insurance plan within the UN system. And we hope member states will support this initiative when times come. Distinguished chairs and delegates, UNHCR was created 74 years ago as the conscience of the international community, a promise that the world would not turn its back on those forced to flee when peace failed them. Today, that promise is at risk. The recent cuts are not just administrative adjustments. They are the direct consequence of declining contributions and shrinking humanitarian financing. These cuts affect not only our staff and operations, but the very lives and dignity of millions of displaced men, women, and children who depend on this collective commitment for survival and hope. As global displacement reaches unprecedented levels, we must remember why UNHCR exists: to stand with the forcibly displaced until diplomacy and solutions can restore their rights and their future. This is not merely an institutional crisis, it's a human one. Every dollar withdrawn is a lifeline severed. A couple of years ago, UNHCR had several $1 billion in funding and over 20,000 staff. Today, we face very bleak projections for the 2026 budget, with a workforce to match. As the High Commissioner reminded us, with over 90% of staff serving in frontline roles, every reduction in capacity translates into fewer services and more lives at risk. Now, more than ever, we need clarity from you, our member states. What is your vision for UNHCR? With what resources, financial and human, will this mandate be undertaken? The Staff Council understands the need for reforms. As global shared services platforms are rolled out and new hybrid workforce models developed, it is essential that processes are managed transparently, and only then will reform strengthen the organization rather than weaken its human core. We do welcome the ambition of the Humanitarian Reset and the UNHCR initiative. We share the aim of reducing unnecessary bureaucracy and improving effectiveness across the humanitarian system. But let us reiterate, efficiencies must not come at the expense of staff well-being or the delivery of life-saving protection. UNHCR has the most resilient and dedicated workforce in the system. And you have always known that you could count on us to be on the front lines at every corner of the globe, to design and deliver protection in the most complex crises. Without staff, there is no UNHCR. Every budget decision, every reform enacted, every act of restructuring has a direct human impact. Staff are not just numbers on a chart. They are the presence, the protection, and the continuity that make the implementation of our noble mandate possible. We recognize that the High Commissioner is doing his utmost to steer the organization through unprecedented difficulties, and that he has sought solutions for staff, responding to the concerns we have consistently raised. For the staff who remain, for those who have left, and for those who now face a more uncertain tomorrow, what matters is how this crisis is handled. We ask that you place fairness, dignity, and humanity at the center of your deliberations. But without stronger and more predictable support from the member states, the damage to staff and to the people forcibly displaced will be profound and irreversible. I will end with a quote from the video that you saw on Monday. The video with strong messages from UNHCR colleagues, refugee children in schools in Chad, Sudanese families resettled, returnees in Syria. All this work that we do every day with passion and pride. and that we want to continue doing. Who are we if we do not do everything possible to help the most vulnerable? Who are we if we cannot make a difference? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Muchas gracias, señora.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mainet. I open the floor to delegations wishing to take the floor on this item.
La distinguida representante de Uganda tiene la
The distinguished representative of Uganda, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. We want to thank the representative of the Staff Council for your very passionate and at the same time emotional statement. The staff of the UNHCR are indeed the engine of the mandate of protection, and Uganda believes that the UNHCR staff actually involves your High Commissioner, because we consider him staff of the UNHCR, at least from our side of the story. And so from that angle, we would like to thank you deeply, and through you, Madam, please convey the message of my delegation, Uganda, that my country appreciates deeply the work of your staff. We see you, we hear you, and amidst the ongoing cuts and the brutal, sharp, unexpected, unplanned, but unfortunately unavoidable cuts that had to be made, we have stood with you. If during our engagement that we believed were constructive may have come off to mean that for calling for efficiency means putting you in the line of a lot of work, we believe that actually efficiency with transparency and respect of engagement with all parties concerned should be able to create some predictability on the part of staff that are not just staff because they're called staff, they're human beings like us with lots of people that depend on them, people in hospital, children in schools, and families that depend on every penny that they pick at the end of the month. We want to empathize with the stress and the fear that comes from the result of the unknown. And when you say that they go to bed and they are wondering, am I the next to be cut tomorrow? That cut sharp and that cut deep. We want through you to convey to your staff that Uganda sees you, that we appreciate you. And indeed, the people that you serve may never have the chance to sit in this room to say thank you to you, but as a hosting country that affords them that shelter and protection, thank you for doing our work, because your staff actually do the work of member states. We have the duty to protect these people, and you do it on our behalf. We see you, we support you, we pray for you, but we'll continue to be your voice through thick and thin. I thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Any further requests for the floor? It does not appear to be the case. I would like to express my thanks for the statement provided by the Staff Council, which reminds us that the work we ask the office to carry out could not be achieved without the commitment and dedication of its staff. And this is all the more important now in light of the current circumstances. The Executive Committee applauds the courage and dedication of UNHCR staff and encourages them to continue to serve such a noble cause. On our part, we will follow developments closely and count on the Staff Council to keep us abreast of ongoing developments affecting staff. Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I would like to turn the committee's attention to items 9 and 10 of the agenda, which will be considered together. These agenda items relate to the work of this committee and the Standing Committee in the year to come, and include a number of draft decisions. As she did for Decision 1 on the budget, I would now invite the ExCom rapporteur, Ms. Lisa Advani, to introduce these draft decisions, which were reviewed and agreed upon by the ExCom members during the informal preparatory consultation. Ms. Advani, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, dear colleagues, I'm pleased to introduce the general decisions that address the work of the committee in the coming year. Decision 2 agrees how the Standing Committee, which carries on the Executive Committee's work between plenary sessions, will work in 2026. Specifically, the decision decides to convene 3 formal meetings of the Standing Committee at March, June and July, and September. It reaffirms the existing framework for the programme of work, and it authorises the Executive Committee to add or remove topics as needed. Member States will meet in December 2025 to prepare a detailed work plan for 2026. The decision also highlights the importance of meaningful discussion, offering clear guidance and advice. Decision 3 addresses observer participation in meetings of the Standing Committee during the intersessional period from October 2025 to October 2026. Decision 4 adopts the standard provisional agenda contained for the 77th plenary session. Decision 5 addresses the participation of intergovernmental organisations in private meetings of the Executive Committee. Decision 6 addresses the simultaneous distribution of documents for the annual plenary session of the Executive Committee. And finally, Decision 7 decides to extend the timeline of the multi-year work plan for Executive Committee conclusions to include the postponed 2025 theme on climate action as relevant to UNHCR's activities in 2027. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Gracias, señora Advani.
Thank you, Ms. Advani. With reference to the third draft decision, I wish to advise the committee that the official requests for observer status received to date from United Nations member states have been submitted for me to review. The following states have submitted requests: Central African Republic, Cuba, Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Equatorial Guinea, Gambia, Honduras, Liberia, Mauritania, Niger, Santo Tome and Principe, and Sierra Leone. I find these requests to be in good order. With the committee's consent, I therefore propose that the names of these states be inserted into the agreed text of draft decision 3. Is there any delegation wishing to comment on these draft decisions? I see none. May I take it that the Executive Committee wishes to adopt these decisions? From 2 to 7. I see no objections. It is so decided. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, we will now proceed to item 11 of our agenda, the election of the Bureau for the Executive Committee to take office as of tomorrow and until the end of the 77th plenary session. I will begin with the office of chairperson. Is there a nomination for the office of chairperson? I recognize the distinguished representative of Pakistan.
High Commissioner, Chairperson, distinguished delegates, Pakistan, as the first Vice Chair of the ExCom Bureau for Asia Pacific Group, is pleased to present nomination of His Excellency Ambassador Oike Atsuyuki, Permanent Representative of Japan, for the next Chair of ExCom Bureau for the period 2025-26, representing the Asia Pacific Group. Ambassador Oike Atsuyuki assumed his position in Geneva in December 2023 and having joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Japan in 1983. Ambassador Oike Atsuyuki has worked on various positions at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Japan. He has also worked with important organizations such as UNESCO and the WTO. As we know, Japan is an active contributor to the UNHCR, and I'm confident that Ambassador Oike Atsuyuki will bring his considerable diplomatic expertise to the role of the chair and will be a capable and effective representative of the Asia-Pacific Group. Chairperson, as our tenure successfully ends today, it was an honor to serve on the ExCom Bureau with my esteemed colleagues from Ecuador, Ethiopia, and the UK. We also thank the APG for their consistent support and excellent teamwork throughout the year. I would like to thank the High Commissioner, Secretariat, and the Secretary Governance for their support during our tenure. We also congratulate in advance Ethiopia, Norway, and Colombia for the positions at the Bureau and look forward to working with them. I wish them best of luck. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much to the representative of Pakistan for the nomination. Do other delegations wish to second this nomination? I recognize the Ambassador of Ethiopia.
Thank you, Chair. It is my pleasure to second the nomination of His Excellency Ambassador Oike Atsuyuki, Permanent Representative of Japan, for the position of the chairperson of the 77th session of the UNHCR Executive Committee. Ambassador Oike is a most capable leader with rich professional expertise who represents a country that leads with action. Japan has been a major donor to UNHCR over the decades. Furthermore, at the second Global Refugee Forum in 2023, Japan served as a co-convener. Japan is also leading a multi-stakeholder initiative on the Humanitarian Development Peace Nexus, in which our country, Ethiopia, is deeply collaborating with Japan. Since taking up his current position in Geneva, Ambassador Oike has actively participated in addressing humanitarian issues. His mission hosted a series of roundtables to discuss these issues. In February 2025, he facilitated discussions on the HDP nexus with top leaders from UNDP and OCHA. Additionally, recognizing the severe impact of climate change, he has shown strong leadership in providing support for displaced people exposed to climate risks through innovative approaches. Preceding his tenure in Geneva, Ambassador Oike served as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Japan to UNESCO. He held several chairing roles during that time, including chair of the Finance and Administrative Commission and Working Group on the Global Reflection on the Intangible Cultural Heritage. It is our sincere hope that the nomination of Ambassador Oike will be endorsed by the Executive Committee by acclamation. I thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much to the Ambassador of Ethiopia. May I take it that His Excellency Ambassador Atsuyuki Oike of Japan is elected chairperson of the 77th session of the Executive Committee by acclamation? It is so decided.
Felicito al
I congratulate Ambassador Oike on his election as chairperson. I wish you every success in the exercise of your functions. I now invite the meeting to proceed to the office of the first vice chairperson. Does any delegation wish to make a nomination? I recognize the distinguished representative of Côte d'Ivoire.
La Côte d'Ivoire.
Monsieur le Président,
Chair, the African Group would like to nominate His Excellency Mr. Tseba Daka, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Ethiopia at the United Nations Office at Geneva, as the Vice Chairperson, the first Vice Chairperson of the Bureau of the Executive Committee of the UNHCR. This nomination, if confirmed, will show the trust afforded to Ethiopia and its permanent representative in leadership and diplomatic commitments, which is already well known. It would also reflect the recognition of Ethiopia's experience in hosting and protecting refugees, as well as its active contribution to regional and international efforts of solidarity and quest for lasting solutions. The African Group would warmly support this nomination within the Executive Committee at a time when the international community must redouble its efforts to meet the growing challenges connected to forced displacement. The African Group, therefore, stands ready to support His Excellency Mr. Gab Daka and fully support him in discharging his mandate. And we understand his determination to work proactively to strengthen international cooperation, engage in burden sharing, and guarantee protection for refugees and IDPs across the world. I thank you. Thank you very much. Do any other delegations wish to second this nomination? I recognize the distinguished representative of Norway.
High Commissioner, Chairperson, Excellencies and colleagues. It is my pleasure to second the nomination of His Excellency Ambassador Tsegab Kebebe Daka, the permanent representative of Ethiopia for the position of First Vice Chairperson on the 77th session of the EXCOM. In addition to the expertise and experience he brings as a person, he also represents a country that leads by example. Ethiopia is one of Africa's largest refugee hosting countries, currently hosting over 1.1 million refugees. Since his arrival in Geneva, Ambassador Tsegab has actively led Ethiopia's engagement on refugee issues. He played a key role in steering Ethiopia's participation in the Global Refugee Forum 2 years back, where the government of Ethiopia showcased its progressive refugee policies and made significant pledges in support of refugee protection. As second vice chairperson, Ambassador Tsegab made valuable contributions to the work of the Bureau. He has also provided strong leadership in other important roles, notably during his tenure as chair of the UNHCR support group and as the coordinator of the Africa Ambassadors Group on health issues. I would like to, in particular, thank him for his constructive role in what was probably this year's biggest achievement in multilateral Geneva, the adoption of the pandemic treaty. Ambassador Tsegab Kebebe Daka has over 30 years of diplomatic experience, as of late also as ambassador to Australia. I encourage the EXCOM to endorse him by acclamation. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. May I take it that His Excellency Ambassador Tsegab Kebebe Daka of Ethiopia is elected as first vice chairperson of the 77th session of the EXCOM by acclamation? It is so decided.
Felicito a
I congratulate Ambassador Daka on his election as first vice chairperson. I wish him every success in the exercise of his functions. I now invite the meeting to proceed to the office of the second vice chairperson. Does any delegation wish to make a nomination?
Reconozco a la distinguida representante.
I recognize the distinguished representative of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. It's a pleasure to speak to you from down here. The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is honoured to nominate Ambassador Tormod Endredsen, Permanent Representative of the Kingdom of Norway to the United Nations in Geneva, for this position of second Vice Chair of the Bureau of the Executive Committee of UNHCR. Ambassador Endredsen is a distinguished diplomat whose career spans key postings in Singapore, China, and New York, as well as senior leadership roles in Oslo, including as Director General at the Prime Minister's Office. His extensive experience and unwavering dedication to multilateral cooperation exemplify the values and principles upheld by this committee. In our opinion, set without prejudice, Norway's long-standing and principled partnership with UNHCR is well recognized. The country has consistently demonstrated its commitment to international protection, championing the rights of refugees, internally displaced persons, and other persons of concern. Norway's advocacy is deeply rooted in respect for international law and a steadfast commitment to humanitarian action. We're confident that Ambassador Endredsen will bring to the role of second vice chair not only his diplomatic acumen and strategic insight, but also a spirit of collaboration and integrity that will strengthen the work of the Bureau and the Executive Committee during this pivotal period. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. I thank the representative of the United Kingdom. Do any other delegations wish to second this nomination? I recognize the distinguished representative of Kenya.
Hi, Commissioner, Chairperson. Kenya is pleased to second the nomination of Ambassador Tormod Endredsen of Norway as second Vice Chair of the UNHCR Executive Committee Bureau. Ambassador Endredsen brings broad experience from a long diplomatic career, including senior postings in Geneva, Asia, and in Oslo. In his recent role as a permanent representative in Geneva, I would particularly highlight his role in championing our common partnership on the Safe School Declaration, and Kenya is honored to host the 5th International Conference on the Safe School Declaration this November. His proven record of commitment to the multilateral system will be of great value in the work of the Bureau. Norway's long-standing support for UNHCR, and particularly their unearmarked and flexible support, is widely recognized and appreciated. It has been instrumental in giving UNHCR the agility to address humanitarian needs whenever and wherever they occur. We also recognize Norway's role in addressing the root causes of humanitarian crisis through their conflict resolution and peace-building efforts. We are confident that Ambassador Endredsen will serve with distinction, and we encourage all delegations to support his nomination. I thank you for your attention.
Muchas gracias a la.
Thank you very much to the permanent representative of Kenya. May I take it that Her Excellency, Ambassador of Norway, is elected as second vice chairperson of the 77th session of the Executive Committee by acclamation? It is so decided.
Lamentablemente, el embajador Endredsen.
Unfortunately, the ambassador was unable to be with us this afternoon, but I congratulate her as election as second vice chairperson. Let's now proceed to the office of rapporteur. Is there a nomination for the office of rapporteur?
Reconozco.
I recognize the distinguished representative of Brazil.
Mil gracias, señor presidente. Tras consultas con el grupo de países de las Américas,
After consultations with a group of countries from the Americas, it's an honor to present the nomination of Councillor Laura Arango from the Permanent Mission of Colombia to the UN at Geneva as rapporteur of the EXCOM. She has been working in humanitarian affairs in the Colombian mission in Geneva since 2022, and as focal point for the UNHCR, she spearheaded Colombia's participation with co-sponsors at the Second Global Forum on Refugees. Furthermore, she was one of the main leaders, advocates at the Global Forum for Migration and Development, which concluded recently with success at the Rioja summit. Her experience in negotiating conclusions within the EXCOM, as well as the omnibus conclusion, demonstrates her capacity to build bridges between different regions and forge alliances and agreements. The group fully believes that advisor or Councillor Laura Arango has the appropriate skills to discharge the mandate of rapporteur, particularly at a time of huge challenges for the UNHCR and for multilateralism. We would therefore respectfully call on support from the EXCOM for her election. Thank you very much. Thank you to the representative of Brazil. Would any delegation wish to second this nomination? I give the floor to the representative of Uganda.
Thank you, Chair. I have the pleasure to second the nomination of my dear friend, Ms. Laura Arango, a counselor for humanitarian affairs in the Permanent Mission of Colombia. Laura brings to the Bureau the requisite experience and expertise to contribute to the successful steering of the governance body. Laura's experience, personality, and humility will positively shape the direction of negotiations amidst a very delicate multilateral space that we are in. Beyond her personal attributes, Chair, Laura is a diplomat of a very important country to the work of the EXCOM, exemplified by the large number of refugees and internally displaced persons that Colombia hosts. Turning to the much-awaited partnership and cooperation within the UN family and amidst the ongoing humanitarian reset, Laura brings on board the requisite experience for partnership in the UN family, considering that she also multitasks and covers as a focal point for the IOM, where they steered successfully a very brilliant global forum on migration and development, where Colombia serves as chair. With those attributes and many more, Uganda, and in my personal capacity, I invite the EXCOM to endorse the election of Laura by acclamation. Thank you.
Muchas gracias a la.
Thank you to the representative of Uganda. Can I take it that Ms. Laura Arango Jimena Arango Blanco, Councillor from the Permanent Mission of Colombia to the United Nations at Geneva, is elected as rapporteur of the 77th session of the Executive Committee? It is so decided.
Felicito.
I congratulate Ms. Arango on her election as rapporteur and my best wishes for success in your functions. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I would like to warmly congratulate the Executive Committee Bureau we've just elected, and I'd like to wish it every success in the important work ahead. I recall that the new Bureau will serve this committee with effect from tomorrow, following the end of this 76th annual plenary session, until the end of the 77th plenary session, in accordance with the working methods of the Executive Committee. It's now my pleasure to invite the chairperson-elect, His Excellency Ambassador Atsuyuki Oike of Japan, to the podium to make a brief statement to the committee.
Bienvenido, embajador. Tiene usted.
Welcome, Ambassador. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. High Commissioner, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. At the outset, allow me to express my sincere appreciation to the Asia-Pacific Group for their generous endorsement of my nomination to the chair of the Executive Committee of UNHCR for the year 2025 to 2026 term, as conveyed by the distinguished representative of Pakistan. Among the APG members, Bangladesh also demonstrated a willingness to take up this position, and I would like to express my gratitude to Bangladesh for their understanding regarding my nomination. I would also like to thank the Ambassador of Ethiopia for kindly seconding my nomination. I regard this support not only as a vote of confidence in my professional and diplomatic experience, but more importantly, as a recognition of Japan's long-standing commitment to humanitarian assistance and our consistent contributions to addressing refugee situations. Japan has long been a major donor of UNHCR. Moreover, we proudly served as a co-convener of the Second Global Refugee Forum in 2023. We have also been actively leading multi-stakeholder initiative under the Humanitarian Development Peace Nexus and have hosted several roundtables to sustain the momentum generated by the GRF and further advance the HDP Nexus agenda. Excellencies, we find ourselves at a critical juncture in the global humanitarian landscape. Humanitarian needs are growing at an alarming pace, resulting in unprecedented number of individuals requiring urgent assistance. But at the same time, the gap between these needs and the available resources has significantly expanded. Mr. High Commissioner, you made a strong case for the indispensable role of the UNHCR. I agree with you, the points you made. Now the challenge before us is to find out how we can translate your vision into concrete results in the environment of more needs and less resources. We have to make efforts to secure resources, of course, but at the same time, we have to come up with more innovative approaches. This is why the role of the Executive Committee has never been more critical. It is incumbent upon us to provide advice and strategic support to the High Commissioner and the UNHCR in the execution of their vital function, including identifying innovative methodologies. We must engage in open and honest dialogue to uphold the core values of UNHCR, to alleviate the burdens faced by refugee hosting countries, and to expand international solidarity and support. Finally, allow me to warmly congratulate you, Mr. Chair, and other members of the Bureau for your capable leadership and effective stewardship in this committee. I express my strong willingness to continue the important work of the Executive Committee, and in doing so, I hope I can rely on the support of all members and observers. I look forward to close coordination with all the relevant stakeholders. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Oike. This brings us to Item 12 of the agenda, any other business? Would any delegation like to take the floor under this item? It does not appear to be the case. I therefore close this item of the agenda. And we will turn to item 13, adoption of the report of the 76th plenary session of the Executive Committee, which reflects the decisions adopted over the course of this plenary session. The draft report has been made available to delegations. I now call on the rapporteur of the 76th session to present the draft report. Ms. Advani, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, dear colleagues, friends. I address you for the last time under my tenure as we conclude the 76th session of the Executive Committee. I've heard colleagues refer to this as the most consequential session in a generation. In the face of an unprecedented financial crisis impacting not only UNHCR, but the wider multilateral system, we have been reminded of the power of unity, of coming together consensually to shrink the distance between those in need and those who can help. We have, over the course of the session, continuously demonstrated practicality and bold reimagination and cooperation that reinforces the credibility of multilateral diplomacy. So please allow me first and foremost to thank the members of this Executive Committee for the confidence that you placed in me to discharge the role of rapporteur over the past year. It has been an honor. Second, I would like to extend a special word of appreciation to our colleagues in the Secretariat and the Division of International Protection. Anne, Mercedes, Madeline in particular, thank you. It has been a privilege to work alongside you and witness the dedication that enables the Executive Committee to deliver meaningful and effective outcomes. Finally, I turn to the presentation of the draft report of this session. This is a procedural document. Sections 1 and 2 provide a summary of the deliberations held over our discussions. Section 1 also records the outcome of the election of Bureau officers, which will now be updated. Section 3 records the 7 decisions, which will now be updated, adopted by the committee. And at the annex, the report contains the statement of the Executive Committee. Once adopted, the report will be issued as an addendum to the High Commissioner's annual report to the General Assembly. It will subsequently be considered by the Third Committee in early November. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Muchas gracias, señora Advani.
Thank you very much, Ms. Advani. Any delegation wishing to take the floor? If there are no comments, I take it that we can adopt the report of the 76th plenary session of the Executive Committee. It is so decided. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, we have reached agenda item 14 of and the closure of the session. I now invite the High Commissioner, Mr. Filippo Grandi, to deliver closing remarks.
Mr. Chairman, Signor Presidente, dear friends and colleagues, sincere thanks on behalf of all of us at UNHCR for the substantive and frank engagement throughout the week. As I sat for the 10th and last time on this podium, where I have now spent 50 days of my life, and as I tried to respond to 155 statements in the general debate, which means that I must have responded to about 1,500 statements during my tenure at ExCom alone. Sorry, I'm bragging, but it was a worthwhile effort. I was reflecting on how relevant this exercise, beyond the formalities, continues to be. Because we did not always agree. You did not always agree with each other. But this is exactly the soft power of humanitarian diplomacy, the strength of multilateralism, if you allow me this word. And I'm proud that we at ExCom proved it in our small way during the week in which diplomacy may have prevailed again over brute force to put an end to disaster in Gaza. Because here at ExCom too, diplomacy has been at work. Each one of you drew on your respective experiences and perspectives, but also reflected your sometimes divergent priorities. But through very different, but always constructive perspectives, we focused on what brings us together, how to protect refugees, displaced and stateless people, how to find solutions to their plight, but also how to ensure that UNHCR remains strong and how the organization can become even more efficient. I want to thank all those who approached this year's session with a positive spirit. I'm concerned, however, about divisions within this body that have unfortunately grown more visible in the last few years. The very unfortunate divisions created by the vote on the budget amendments prove this point. UNHCR is committed to listening and working with all of you in a manner that continues to take into account the concerns that you have raised. Nonetheless, I welcome the return of the adoption of UNHCR's budget by consensus, which is a critical symbol of trust in the organization. This return to tradition is important because it shows that, despite our differences, with cooperation, with compromise, multilateralism can work. Please resist temptations to abandon these good practices. Mr. Chairman, I opened this session on Monday with a defense of the 1951 Refugee Convention. I thought it was necessary as I felt its principles were being questioned. I'm therefore relieved to have heard many statements highlighting the continued relevance of those principles. Asylum saves lives. And as Haiti compellingly put it, people who seek protection are only asking for their humanity to be recognized, nothing more. And just as importantly, nothing less. This should be our guiding star. Many of you highlighted, however, the real challenges you face, particularly in situations of mixed movements. Challenges with, let me repeat it once and for all, UNHCR fully appreciates. In July, in my own country, I visited Lampedusa, a microcosm of the broader dynamics of mixed movements. A small island that sits closer to the African continent than it does to mainland Europe. Thousands of people, refugees and migrants, land there every month after dangerous sea journeys, as they do in many other places around the world. Thousands have died along the way, either at the hands of smugglers and traffickers on the way to Libya, or as they attempt to cross the Mediterranean. As Colombia, South Africa, Sierra Leone, Greece, and Italy itself, and many others outlined in their statements, the response to such complex movements must consist of measures that strengthen borders or reinforce the integrity of domestic asylum systems. But they must also be combined with a wider approach aimed at addressing root causes of displacement in countries of origin, at providing protection and opportunities along the way for those who need it, and establishing regular migration pathways or return to their countries for those who do not. In short, this means implementing the route-based approach, a proposal exemplifying how UNHCR can support you in identifying and implementing solutions tailored to your needs in a manner that reaffirms the sovereignty of states while respecting their international obligations. Mr. Chairman, the interventions this week leave little doubt that an aid model based on refugee inclusion and self-reliance represents the way forward in situations of forced displacement, especially the large and protracted ones. I'm pleased by how wide-ranging the statements have been supporting this notion. Malawi, Mexico, Rwanda, Jordan, Uganda, Poland, Iran, Moldova, Ethiopia, and many others have all come to the same conclusion. Refugees should have access to documentation, services, and jobs while they are hosted. Or, as Article 3.1 of Brazil's newly adopted national policy puts it, migrants, refugees, and stateless people are drivers of economic and social development. To be clear, inclusion does not equate integration. Inclusion does not mean that refugees cannot eventually go back to their countries of origin when conditions allow and they're able to do so safely. Instead, inclusive aid models recognize that bringing displaced people in leads to better outcomes than leaving them out, especially at a time when humanitarian funding has shrunk so dramatically. It is important to reiterate a point that many of you made. The shift by refugee hosting countries toward more sustainable responses should not lead donors and partners to cut funding. On the contrary, though the type of support must change, responsibility towards refugees must remain shared. And this transition, the famous nexus, has to be handled gradually and cautiously. Otherwise, as we heard from Kenya and others, both refugees and the communities that host them risk being destabilized, just as they embark on inclusion, a delicate process in any country. Similarly, not investing enough in situations where solutions are at hand could be equally, if not more, destabilizing. We have spoken of the return of Syrians to their country and of the need to stabilize those returns inside Syria if we are to avoid renewed displacement in the region and beyond. The same dynamic applies to other return operations. In protracted refugee crises that do not get much attention or resources, in the Central African Republic, for example, or in Burundi, both offer the promise of a solution, if we are able to mobilize funding, or the peril of another humanitarian emergency should we not. Mr. Chairman, I also want to address briefly the issue of UNHCR's core mandate, which has been mentioned on several occasions. There have been suggestions that the organization has somewhat strayed from its original purpose and as a result lost its focus or become less effective. I disagree with that assertion on several counts. The mandate is actually quite clear: to ensure the protection of refugees and to help states seek solutions to their plight. Various legal instruments require UNHCR to also work towards the elimination of statelessness and contribute to supporting internally displaced people. Those are our foundations, which I hope nobody disputes. Then, of course, we can discuss how they're translated into practical action, especially in terms of material assistance. I reject the notion that the scope of our activities in the past has led us away from the core mission. For example, financial constraints may oblige us to unfortunately reduce education or health activities. But in refugee context, these are both life-saving programs crucial to both protection and solutions. So these cuts are losses for which we will have to seek alternative arrangements, not a return to our core mandate. Similar questions may be put in respect of our work on climate action. But this is an area in which, as many of you stated, for example, Bangladesh, Somalia, or Ireland, it is important that UNHCR's work adapts to circumstances. Failing to do that would ignore the reality of contemporary forced displacement. We cannot and should not ignore the impact of large population movements on the environment in Cox's Bazar, Dadaab, or Zatari. We cannot ignore the complex interplay of conflict and the adverse effects of climate change that displace people across the Horn of Africa or the Sahel, many of whom need protection. Of course, our engagement in climate work, as in all other sectors of assistance, I should add, must remain strategic and clearly defined, taking into account our comparative advantage or not. As laid out in our strategic plan for climate action, our work in that area is limited to well-defined tracks: protection, solutions, resilience, and adaptation that are within our broader mandate. That is the message I will take with me to COP30 in Belém in a few weeks. The Global Refugee Forum Progress Review will provide another opportunity in December to discuss those issues of partnership, efficiencies, and transformation in the context also of UN80 and broader humanitarian reforms, which are as important to us as they are to you. Mr. Chairman, I want to recognize the unanimous expressions of support at a time when the humanitarian sector is in crisis due to cuts in foreign aid. As many of you have rightly said, this is first and foremost a crisis for all refugees and those who count on us. For all the families who will have less food to eat. All the girls who will no longer be able to study. All those who, through no fault of their own, will suffer the most direct and severe consequences of these cuts. It is also a crisis for many refugee hosting countries who have kept their doors open even as funding has dried. As you heard repeatedly during this week, many feel abandoned, taken for granted, as if they, just like donor countries, did not also have to contend with the reasons why aid budgets had to be cut: economic crisis, budgetary limitations, domestic political pressures, security concerns. And on top of all that, they host refugee populations, which is rarely the case for donors. Finally, this is a crisis for UNHCR, and I thank you for the kind words of support, especially for all the colleagues who have been impacted by these reductions. You heard directly from the chairperson of our staff council. We are ready to do more. We can do more, but we need additional funds. And so I must appeal to you once more on everyone's behalf. We need at least $300 million to end the year. Please help. To all those who can provide additional flexible support for 2025, now is the time. To all those donors or potential donors who may have sat on the sidelines and who could do more, especially in the Gulf region or in Asia, now is the time. Without urgent, flexible support, we will have to make more cuts in large humanitarian operations where many of our activities are life-saving. I push back on the notion that we can do more with less. I will now officially stop saying that we will do less with less. We will actually do as much as resources allow, but one thing is sure, we will do it well. And that is the message, Mr. Chairman, with which I take leave from this committee. From you, our main partners, interlocutors, and friends. After 10 intense, challenging, gripping years, like all human beings, I could have done more. I have made mistakes, but I have tried to give it all of myself, conscious of the responsibilities that come from leading an organization tasked, yes, with saving lives, in the broadest sense. An organization which provides an extraordinary perspective on the worst, but also the best of our world. And before I wrap up, I would like, as is tradition, to thank you, Ambassador Bermudez, Señor Presidente, dear Marcelo, for your steady stewardship of this year's Executive Committee, not only during this plenary, but throughout a difficult year. Thank you for your dedication, your serene diplomacy, and your personal commitment. I would also like to extend my congratulations to my friend, Ambassador Oike of Japan, on his election as chair. Welcome, Atsuyuki, to this important task. My congratulations also to the rest of the Bureau, including Ambassador Daka of Ethiopia as first vice chair, Ambassador Endresen of Norway as second vice chair, as well as the new rapporteur, Arango Blanco of Colombia. Thanks are also in order to Anne Kea and the entire UNHCR teams, past and present, of the ExCom Secretariat for their tireless work and without whom these sessions will not be possible. Finally, and to end on a personal note, I was humbled that many delegations shared expressions of appreciation for my tenure as High Commissioner for Refugees. Let me be clear, though. I would have achieved nothing without the extraordinary support of my colleagues, my deputies, Deputy High Commissioner Kelly Clements, with whom I've been on this podium 10 times, and Assistant High Commissioners Ralph Mazu and Ruben Menitiwela, as well as their predecessors, George Okotobo, Volker Turk, and Gillian Triggs. My Chief of Staff, Shahzad Tajbakhsh, and her predecessors, all directors, some of whom are here, past and present, in the senior management team, the chair of the Staff Council and all staff representatives, and last but not least, the patient and hardworking colleagues in the Executive Office since 2016. And of course, all colleagues in the organization in which I have grown up myself, as a professional and as a person. To all of them go my most sincere gratitude for their work, their dedication, and their friendship, and for making UNHCR so unique. I will carry you all in my heart forever.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, High Commissioner. I would also like to thank my gratitude once again to delegations for their active contributions to this week's deliberations. On behalf of the Bureau, I convey our best wishes for a successful 77th session ahead. High Commissioner, Excellencies, delegates, friends, this concludes a year of intense work as the chairperson of the ExCom of the UNHCR. This has been challenging but profoundly enriching that has allowed me to contribute to a cause that looks at the most essential aspect of humanity, protection for those who are obliged to flee to save their lives or safeguard their freedom. Representing the Executive Committee in a global context that is characterized by unprecedented levels of enforced displacement and financial challenges has been a privilege and a great responsibility. I took on this role with the commitment to engage in frank dialogue on the sustainability of the global humanitarian response, strengthen multilateralism, and the need to find lasting solutions. In this spirit, I had the privilege of guiding the debates of the Standing Committee, building bridges between delegations, supporting follow-up for the Global Compact on refugees, and contribute to keeping political attention on protracted crises, some of which were at risk of being forgotten. High Commissioner, colleagues, one of the most significant experiences over my mandate was the visit I took to Bangladesh and Thailand, where I could see firsthand the enormous challenges facing refugees and stateless people, in spite of the generosity and the huge efforts being made by host countries. In refugee camps in Cox's Bazar and Tanjim, I heard very moving personal testimonies in both contexts, in spite of the harsh reality and the reduction of funds. I find one constant, and that is hope. The hope of young people in education and in prospects of a future where they can enjoy their rights. I also saw a pressing call for change, the need for more opportunities, for greater inclusion, and above all, a political response to the conflict in Myanmar, without which it would not be possible to move towards a return and lasting solutions. It's fundamental that the international community can promote peaceful settlement of disputes based on international law, the prevention of armed conflicts and other crises, which are at the root of 120 million displaced persons currently. As president or chair of EXCOM, I've also seen the increasingly serious impact of the humanitarian deficit, which threatens weakening the very foundation of the international protection system. In this context, I joined the appeal of the High Commissioner to diversify funding sources, promote innovation, and uphold humanitarian principles. But above and beyond the resources, this year I reaffirmed the importance of international co-responsibility. We cannot keep leaving most of the weight of the response on the shoulders of the host countries, many of whom make enormous efforts in spite of their limited resources, and they go through their own economic and social crises. We need a fairer distribution of responsibilities, greater international cooperation, and decisive action on the part of countries with more capacity. From my experience as an Ecuadorian diplomat in various fora, I've shared the experience of Ecuador as a host country, which has promoted socioeconomic inclusion as a key element of protection and cohesion. That perspective needs to be central if we want to try to find more lasting and sustainable responses for the future. I also tried to shed light on the situation of forgotten refugees, of stateless persons living in protracted situations of displacement without any clear way out. I have firmly defended the principle of non-return and respect for fundamental rights of refugees. High Commissioner, delegates, today I'm concluding my mandate as chair of the Executive Committee, but not my commitment to the cause. I would like to express my deep thanks to the Secretariat of the EXCOM, the UNHCR team in Geneva and in the field, in particular Ankia, and my team in the Permanent Mission of Ecuador, and all delegations for their cooperation, respect, and the constructive spirit that has characterized our dynamic throughout the year. I'd also like to thank the other members of the Bureau, Ambassador of Pakistan, the first Vice Chair, Ambassador Kibebo Daka, the Vice Chair of Ethiopia and the Chair as of tomorrow, and then Ms. Lisa Advani as the Rapporteur from United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland for her support over the past year. At times of increasing polarization, the International Protection System for Refugees, the UNHCR, continues to be one of the clearest expression of principle-based multilateralism. We need to care for it and we need to strengthen it, and that is a shared responsibility. I express my special recognition and thanks to the High Commissioner Filippo Grandi for his gargantuan contribution to the task. His contribution has been key to the work of the organization. It's been a privilege for me to work close with him and be a witness to his extraordinary capacity to guide us, particularly at this difficult time. Distinguished delegates, there's a lot still to do and to persevere with. I've seen with my own eyes that even in the most difficult context, resilience is still there, that young refugees continue to dream of a future where they have achievements, but they just need an opportunity. Many communities are continuing to reach out their hands, and we need to ensure that we can be up to the challenge and up to the level of this hope so that we can ensure their dreams may be cemented. This need for global solidarity to respond to a humanitarian cause is a challenge. We have the causes for displacement that are multiple, as well as the armed conflict, and each region has its own unique challenges, but the human impact is shared. This is universal. Communities that are destroyed, families that are separated, and futures that are broken. Thank you for your trust in me, and thank you, above all, for not losing sight of the most essential thing, that behind each figure there's a story, there's a community, a family, a life that deserves being protected, and a hope that we cannot allow to die. Thank you. I'd just like to pay tribute to the decades of support and work of the High Commissioner and his tireless commitment to the UNHCR, and his team has prepared a video, so I'd like to kindly ask the technicians to project the video.
What does a life of humanitarian service truly look like?
Fighting is going on.
Wow.
For more than 40 years, Filippo Grandi has stood with the world's most vulnerable, and for nearly a decade, he has guided UNHCR through some of its most defining chapters. From the height of the Syrian refugee crisis,
I just spent a bit of time with a refugee family from near Aleppo. I thought it was very important to start my real work in the field.
To what may finally become its lasting resolution.
And what you see here is many Syrian refugees who are crossing the border and going back to their homes.
He has been a relentless advocate for inclusion and strengthening partnerships with development actors so refugees can learn, work, live with dignity, and contribute to the societies that welcome them. A bridge builder, laying the groundwork for shared responsibility through the Global Compact on Refugees. A tireless leader in the fight against statelessness, so millions could finally say, I belong. A voice for science, raising awareness of the link between climate shocks and forced displacement. A believer in the power of sport to unite, inspire, and uplift.
He changed my life through his word, and now, it is upon me to see also to change other people's lives.
In moments that shook the world, from natural disasters to the Rohingya crisis, from Ukraine to Sudan, UNHCR was there, with Grandy leading the way.
So we should not lose hope, although the situation is tremendously challenging, but there are ways forward.
A life of humanitarian service looks like this, built day by day, with compassion, conviction, and the quiet courage to carry on.
Tenemos una pequeña ceremonia.
We have one small traditional thing to do.
A little gift to the chair.
Thank you very much.
With many, many thanks.
Quisiera hacer uso de esta
I would like to take this opportunity to express my thanks to all who contributed to the smooth running of this 76th session of the ExCom, including the Secretariat of the Committee, the conference services, the technicians of the UN Office at Geneva, the interpreters, and the team of volunteers. With this, I declare closed the 76th session of the ExCom. Thank you, everybody. you.